Life is as difficult as it needs to be. Why would you try to have success alone? Why not find a community of people that really want you to succeed, that really want to support you and help you find success in your life? If you've failed, if you've messed up, if you've made every mistake possible and are searching for ways to bounce back after you've lost everything, after you've had failures in your life, this is the podcast for you. And more importantly, this is the community for you. This is the place where you go to try to make a difference again, to try to bounce back again, to try and have massive success again. This is the community for you. All right, Jared. How are you?
With the Dennis Rodman of sales. So, I mean, there's no better way to start a day than with you, my friend. And I'm excited and I'm honored and I'm very proud of you. So, but life is pure fire right now, and I'm ready to expose whatever you want to ask me, man. I'm all yours. Let's give it a go.
Nice. What are you most excited about right now?
I'm most excited about walking my talk. So my wife and I and my two children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, we were very happily living in Connecticut, and the governor of Connecticut mandated masks on children 3 and up for the entire day at school. And that violated one of our non-negotiables as a family, which is freedom of choice. And this is not a political conversation. So it's just having the freedom to choose what you want to do. And that was taken from us. So within 1 week, we sold everything and we moved to Florida. And we're living in Naples, Florida right now. And I'm excited because we walk our talk. And that's something that I've always held myself to. And this was definitely one of those situations where it was like hard to easy versus easy to hard. I think most people live life easy to hard, where they keep doing the easy thing, the easy thing. And then like life becomes progressively more difficult. Versus in 1 week, making that radical change, which is like really hard to make a radical change where you sell everything, you have 2 young children, you're moving pretty far away from family, renting a furnished house that you've never even seen, hoping that it's nice in a community that's supposedly great, but you don't even know, trying to enroll them in school from Connecticut, even though they're going to be in school in Florida. That's a hard, easy path. But now I'm able to experience easy. I'm excited about that. And in the midst of all of this, I've launched a new company in 2020, one that just lights my flame up. And we are launching tech companies, at least 3, 4, sometimes even 5 a month at this point. And we'll talk more about that as well. But I'm ultimately just excited about life and the opportunity that stands before people that are willing to seize it. This has been a very intense year for everybody. No one has been unscathed by this year, but there's an option for people to take, which is to allow this year to happen for you or to you. And for me, and I know for you as well, Brad, it's happening for us. And that means it's just pure opportunity. And I'm empathetic and sympathetic to anyone who's suffering, but it's still happening for you if you make the choice. So that's what I'm most excited about.
So your content's going to be extraordinary today. So before we go down that and take a really deep dive into everything, I think you're underratedly one of the smartest people, one of the wisest people I've ever seen. You size people up really well. It's Strength Finders. It's called individualization. And you do an incredible job of knowing exactly who that person is and where they could go. So before we get into the content, do you want to kind of just do a quick background of who you are and kind of just brag about yourself for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure. So when I was 20 years old, I had this realization. I'll never forget this moment. I'm someone that introspects deeply, and I was introspecting on the fact that I'm going to eventually be a dad. And I knew it wasn't when I was 20, but I knew eventually I was going to be a dad. And someone might say to themselves, like, why were you even thinking about that? And the reason for it is my parents went through a pretty intense divorce when I was much younger. And I'm sure there was way more intense divorces than my parents, but it was pretty bad. And when I thought about my past, the one word that showed up for me was loud. There was nowhere to go for peace. It was just this emotional roller coaster of emotion and finance and moving and fighting and restraining orders and everything that shouldn't happen to a very young child.
Why was it so bad?
Just people that were misaligned on values. I mean, my mother is the most pure human on planet Earth, and my father is amazing as well, but their values are just absolutely misaligned. And my mother was 20 when she met my dad, so she didn't even have a chance to really like find herself. And it was a disaster marriage. Yeah, like absolutely horrific. And my sister and I were like thrown into it. And because I always take the hard, easy route, like that story of what excites me most, like I'm excited by the fact that I'm willing to do that. I immersed myself in my parents' divorce. Like I remember being at the police station when a restraining order was being written up. Like I remember vividly how I felt and why it was happening. And I was able to see things within their dynamic that I don't even know if they saw, because I was just so focused on trying to extract opportunity from the chaos of that situation. And so when I was 20 and I was thinking about my past and then projecting that into my future, I made a declaration, which was, by the time I'm a parent, I must have freedom. I must. And for me, freedom wasn't just financial. It was geographical. It was career. It was time. It was every aspect of freedom that mattered to me. And when I was thinking to myself, well, how does someone create freedom? The only path I could conceptualize was entrepreneurship. So fast forward to today, I just turned 36, and I have a beautiful 4-year-old daughter.
You're only 26?
What's that?
You're only 26?
36.
Oh, 36. Okay.
So 16 years later, and I did it. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I have a little rock star son who's 2, and I have that freedom. And it's all because of entrepreneurship. That was the path I took. I've launched many companies over these 16 years. I've had a few really good runs. I've had even more good learning experiences, but I never lost sight of what was most important to me, which was by the time that I was a dad, I had to have freedom. That was a non-negotiable for me, and I pulled it off. So that's what I'm proud of. And as a result, I don't miss anything with my kids. I have a ton going on, and I am dad first always. And to me, that's what matters. No judgment for anyone that doesn't feel that way. That's just what matters to me. So yeah, I'm most proud of that. And I'll go as deep as you want in any direction now as well, Brad. So please guide me, take me, and let's do it.
Why was there a restraining order?
So my dad has, at the time, had some anger issues, and my mother just felt very threatened by him. And I remember the night it happened, and my sister went to my mother's best friend's house, and my mom said, "You should go with her." And I said, "No, I'm going with you." And I literally went to the police station, and I remember sitting in the cell. We weren't arrested; they just were trying to keep me occupied, the police officers. And they were writing the restraining order up, and then there was like a 72-hour time frame where I wasn't even able to see my dad until the restraining order was lifted and there was peace. But that wasn't even the worst of it. I just remember, like, when I think about my childhood, there was nowhere to go for peace. It was just this constant like noise, loud, anger, grandparents like coming into my room at night, crying to me, being like, "Can you believe this is what your father did?" Like seeing my mother suffering, seeing my father suffering, seeing my dad at the top of the world with his career and have it all implode really quickly. Like it was just this like constant roller coaster. And it's so interesting because I look back and it was my greatest gift, like my greatest gift. And I have every right to be screwed up, like every right. I saw tons of things I should have seen. I was exposed to pain and discomfort. I was having conversations when I was like 9 with either parent that like a 9-year-old shouldn't have, but because I was very inquisitive and I wanted to understand, I wanted meaning in all of this. So I was having these difficult conversations, and I had every right to use that as a story that would hold me back for my entire life. Mm-hmm. And the story shows up still because I'm a human like every single one of you listening or watching this. But the difference is I use that story as my catalyst instead of my kryptonite. And it's what drives me. It's what has allowed me as an entrepreneur to make it, because being an entrepreneur is magic. I mean, like truly magic. Like, there's nothing crazier than thinking that you can actually make an idea real. Like there's something wrong with us to think we can. Yet, when you have a driving force like what I had, for me, it was my gift. It was the reason I've been able to do what I do.
Mm-hmm. So in your mind, why do people that because suffering can become your greatest gift, but it can also become your greatest form of destruction. So in your mind, what separates the people from turning it into a gift, into a passion like you did, and then people that turn it into destruction? What is that separation? Is it a moment, or is it behavioral patterns over time? Like, what do you think that difference is?
It's self-awareness. So like, because there are people in my family that still live as a victim to circumstance. We all have people like that we know.
Yeah.
And I've just chosen not, but it's really self-awareness. And it's let's pretend we have one life to lead. Let's just pretend. This is actually I do with myself all the time. So if I have one life to lead, I'm like, this is it. How do I want to lead it? Do I want to lead it on my terms, or do I want to lead it on the terms of a story that I interpreted from years ago? And I just have that conversation with myself all the time. I think a lot of people that choose the path of victim, they don't know how to identify with anything but that. So that's what they gravitate to, because they don't know who they would be if they weren't a victim. And if they had enough self-awareness to rise up and see themselves for who they truly are, they'd be able to break free. And there are like people in my family, like really close, that have just chosen a different route, that had very similar life experiences that I've had. I've just chosen to never be that, because I always saw myself as something greater than that. And I remember when I was young, I told my mom this. I think I was probably like 10. And I looked her in the eyes. She was just emotionally racked by the life that we were living. And I said to her, Mom, your divorce was my greatest gift. And that was it. And for her, it like shifted her whole paradigm, at least for me. Her whole paradigm shifted. Like, what if this was a gift for him? Like, what if this had to happen for him to become who he would eventually become? And we had a really tough go. Like, my mom's my best friend today. But I left her to live with my father and my stepmother when I was in high school, because we moved from New Jersey to Westchester, and I just couldn't adapt. And part of that was my father bought my original house from my mom so that I can come back on weekends to see my childhood friends. And it made it easy not to adapt when we moved. So I moved back with him. And that's really hard. Think about a parent, like a mother who has custody, being willing and giving their son to your ex-husband and now his wife to raise me for my high school years. And that was hard easy, because she was torn to pieces to like let me go. And as a result, it brought me back closer to her. And it has made our life progressively easier. And our relationship is just deeply bonded. But to your original question, it's just self-awareness. And for me, I looked at all of that pain as an opportunity to build bigger biceps, to get stronger, faster, clearer, more intentional, and to take control of my life. And just most people don't. And they look at it as, why me? I'm a victim. And then that becomes their identity.
What do you mean more intentional?
So there was years ago, I was in a really bad relationship. And I moved from, I was probably living in North New Jersey at the time. And I moved to this really, really small town in Virginia. There was 300 people in the whole town. And I was dating somebody that was on this 1-year program. And she pretty much was like camping the entire time. So I was in this town of 300 people in this like 7,000 square foot house that had no neighbors. Like I was just like by myself on this massive piece of property in this big house with 2 dogs. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how did I even get here? Like what am I doing? Like, this is absurd. Like literally I didn't talk to anybody the entire day. It was just like 2 dogs and me in this massive house and this massive property. And I was thinking about intentionality. And I said this quote to myself, and it became like a war cry for me, even to this day. Like when I make decisions, like this quote is just like in my mind. But it's every intention, every action requires an intention, because an action without an intention leads to a result without an achievement. And results are by chance, and achievements are by choice. And I realized that when I met this young woman, because we were like in our low 20s, I was excited by her and went all in on this relationship, but I had no intention for what I wanted that relationship to turn into in my life. So I went in haphazardly, hoping for the best, and it led to a result, which is by chance, versus an achievement, which is by choice. And for any of you that are listening to this, whether it's starting a business, a relationship, a new health program, if you just go into it without a clear intention of what you're looking to create, you might get what you want, but it's just not replicatable. And for me, I was unintentional with that decision, which led to me moving to this small town in Virginia, completely isolated from the world by myself. And when we ended the relationship, it was like a financial disaster, emotional disaster. Like it really, like in my mind, set me back, but really it propelled me forward because it helped me recognize how intentionality matters with every decision. So today, where I'm the founder of lots of different tech companies and I get pitched on tech ideas, every day I have a few ideas, I always bring intentionality to it. If we do this, what is the intention of this solution? And what is the outcome it can produce? And if I can't get crystal clear on that, I just won't do it, because intentionality is what drives the outcomes that all of us want. But without it, we might get the result we're looking for, but it's not replicatable. It's by chance. And I don't like to do things by chance. I like to create predictable rhythms for the achievements that I want in my life.
Mm. So to go back a little bit, you mentioned your dad got pretty angry. Do you think how much of that was, and you mentioned he had a failed business?
Yeah, many.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how was that, did that factor into the majority of his anger, and did he kind of, what happened to him after that?
No, it is. I think that, like, I remember when I was 19 years old, I started writing a lot. Like I started writing poetry, and then I turned that into personal development content. And I remember thinking to myself that everybody in life has like a chain, and that chain is kind of what they inherit from their life experiences. And you have an opportunity to break the chain at any point in time if what you're inheriting isn't what you ultimately desire. And my father's chain that he inherited from his father was not a positive chain. His father was an alcoholic. He cheated on his wife. He had no money. He kind of killed himself in many ways just with his lifestyle. And that was the chain he inherited. So my father had and has certain destructive qualities, self-sabotage qualities, because he's super talented. But there's an element of lack of worth that always finds a way into opportunities, which then leads to destruction for him and sabotage for him. So that was what it was. It was just self-sabotage. So for me, I broke that chain because I saw what it did. It sabotaged him. It sabotaged our family. It sabotaged everything. And for the better, like everyone is now in a better place. So we were lucky that was the outcome, but it was really, really challenging to get there. So for him, it was just an inherited chain. He didn't break it, and self-sabotage is a major part of his existence.
That's a big deal, because a big theme of this show is going to be the recovery from shame, or the recovery from lack of self-respect, or the recovery from embarrassment, the recovery from failure. And I think you said something very pointed that's very important for people here, which is not the lack of worth you have for yourself, or you see a lack of worth within yourself. I think that's like, for somebody that's right in the middle of that is suffering from a lack of worth, or seeing themselves from a lack of worth. Like, what is there something you can say to that person? Is there something you've been able to say to your dad to say, like, you are good enough, you're more than enough? Is there any particular types of conversations you like to have with yourself and other people?
So when I was 20 years old, I saw a vision for myself to become a motivational speaker. And I don't know where it came from. I didn't even know what to do with that vision. So I launched a company and a blog, and I put $25,000 into it, which was like everything I had at the moment. And it was awesome. It was called Brand Entity. And Brand Entity was focused on aligning your brand, which was your external self, with your identity, which was your internal self. And I had no following at all. Like, it was like literally just my mom on my email list.
You did this at 20?
Yeah, when I was 20, I got it in motion. Yeah. So I was thinking to myself, like, how could I like build a following? How can I make a difference? How can I do this? And I went to LinkedIn. This is going to answer your question, by the way. But I went on LinkedIn and I started posting in different LinkedIn groups, and I wanted to interview people that experienced an identity crisis at some point of their life, and then they live to tell the story. Because a lot of people experience it and that's it. Like they die, they go to a very deep place, they kill themselves. And I was inundated with people, like hundreds of people messaging me, like this was my identity crisis, like interview me. So like so many people want to come out and share that story. And like this was like 16 years ago. So there wasn't platforms like today where it's easier to share your story. So I started a blog talk radio show, which was like an early podcast. And I was interviewing people on their identity crisis. It was literally unreal. And I was 20 doing this. And people were talking about how they were told as a child they had to cut their hair a certain way. And in their entire life, they felt that they had no power. And there was a point of their life where they got to a really dark place because their husband made fun of their hair. And they tried to kill themselves by taking a full bottle of Advil, and like they lived, and that was like their point where they realized that they had purpose. And it's so unfortunate that sometimes we need to hit rock bottom that hard to find meaning in our life. And every story was that. Like every story was like the brink of suicide, and then realizing like, wait, I have more life to lead. Or, oh my goodness, like I heard my baby crying in the background. It just shifted my entire psychology. But I really challenge people to think to themselves, do you have to get that low? Because like right now, if you're in a dark place listening to this or watching this, like there's a reason you're here. Like some reason you found Brad Himel. Like for some reason, like I don't know why, you don't know why, Brad doesn't know why, like, but you did. And just what if that was it? Like what if there was a way to find meaning without hitting rock bottom? And then what it came down to is reminding yourself of that meaning. Listen, I am not like immune to having challenge and dark thoughts. I mean, I wake up every single day now, like Brad, every day. I woke up on Monday, dark. My immediate, like foot at the ground. And you know, my life is pretty good, right? Dark. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, where is this darkness coming from? And I start questioning it. And I start analyzing it. And I start focusing on the fact that I have these two beautiful children, a beautiful wife, and this beautiful home, and this beautiful life. And I just start changing my psychology as quickly as possible. And maybe for you, the person listening to this, maybe you don't have any of those things to focus on, like none of it. So my challenge to you is find something to focus on. Like if you're really in that type of pain, go help somebody else that's in pain, because now you have something different to focus on. When I was 21 years old, I had my first and only life coaching client. Like I never wanted to coach, and I had this one woman that just like showed up in my life. And she was a chiropractor, and her daughter was sexually molested by her husband. And her daughter was only 4, and she couldn't speak for herself. So there was now this custody battle between this daughter that was sexually molested by this woman's soon-to-be ex-husband, and he still had rights to her because the daughter couldn't speak for herself. So she was on the run, like hiding in people's basements. Like her life was dark. And in the coaching that we did, because like I said, I didn't want to be a coach. She showed up in my life, and I felt this burning desire to help her see what I saw, which was this powerful woman that was going to serve her daughter by allowing her daughter to see how she could rise up in the face of such pain. She made that her focus, and her entire perspective shifted. And she ended up getting custody, and her daughter's in college now. Like her entire life has changed, like radically changed, because she just stopped focusing on what she didn't have and found a way to focus on what she does have. Mm-hmm. And that's not hokey pokey, like rah, rah, pound your chest. Like that's tactical, practical. Like for anyone that's listening to this, it's like, but I have nothing positive to focus on. Then go to a nursing home and have a conversation with somebody who's lonely. Like find something else to focus on, tactical, practical. Like call a friend that right now is like feeling isolated from the world because they're autoimmune compromised, they're locked up in their house, and like create meaning for them. Mm-hmm. Like find something else to focus on besides you being a victim. Because I can promise you, whatever pain is produced in your world, it's happening for you and not to you. Everything in life is an opportunity. Everything. Just sometimes it's disguised as pain, discomfort, but it's an opportunity. Like there are people that I know that the children pass away, which I can't think of anything more painful than that, like ever. And when they finally find peace, they see that it was an opportunity for them. An opportunity to slow down their career, an opportunity to go deeper with their significant other, an opportunity to reprioritize their entire life. And it was so unfortunate that that event had to happen for them to have that reckoning. But now they see it as an opportunity and they're at peace. Whatever is creating your pain, it's an opportunity, whether you want to call it that or not. Maybe you lost your job because of COVID. Maybe you got COVID. Maybe you're sick. Maybe your lungs will never be the same because you're put in a ventilator. It was an opportunity. I don't need to define it, but you can. And the way that I've always seen it work is find something that brings extreme meaning and purpose to your life, make that your new focus versus the darkness that you might be living in.
And for you, it's your family?
It's my kids. Yeah, it's them. It's like that one day I woke up dark and literally like Riker came running into the room and he's like, Dad, and jumps on me and kisses me. And I'm like, how? Like nothing else matters to me. Like I could lose everything and I have everything. Like nothing. It just drives me. It humbles me. It aligns me. And it just fires me up to be bigger, louder, more audacious because they're always watching. And they're going to watch me go from being dark to light like this, like that fast. And that's my responsibility for them. That's what it is for me. And for anybody listening, it could be your dog and it could be you. Like it could be just you like looking in the mirror and being like, I was told my entire life I would amount to nothing. I was told that I was too slow, not smart. I was ugly. I was fat. Like people told me I would never make something of myself. Like that might be it for you. Like that might be what gets you out of that dark place was all of the doubt. And then you're like, look at me now. Just something has to shift your paradigm and it has to happen fast, like immediately. Like the moment you get there is the moment you get out of there and it becomes that springboard for whatever you're looking to create. And this is not hokey pokey, rah, rah, BS. Like it's find that thing in your life that shifts your focus, brings you purpose, and then just double down on it.
Wow. Hello, Tony Robbins. Jeez, that's good stuff. And you're obviously passionate about this subject. And I think the way I see you speaking right now is how intensely you're trying to really like serve and get through to people that are really suffering right now. And I think that's amazing and a testament to how unselfish of a person you are. Let's get to brass tacks, because you said coaching. All right, let's paint a picture. You're dead broke. You quote unquote don't think you have anything to offer as a consultant, as a coach. What would you do in that position? You don't have income coming in. If you had to start from scratch and go get a coaching client, go get a consulting client, how quickly could you get one? What would you do? What would you charge? Kind of talk about all those different strategies that you would implement immediately.
So I don't even know if you know this part of the story. So I had this happen with Synduit years ago. So one of my companies is called Synduit. It's 9 years old now. Today we are a software as a service, a marketing service for marketing software for small businesses. But I'm a non-tech entrepreneur that has tech ideas, which means I can't build my ideas. I always have to find somebody. So when I first launched Synduit, my skill set is I can write marketing copy and I can sell. So that's what I did. I sold myself as a copywriter. I got 2 very high profile clients who said, we'll give you a shot. And it worked.
How'd you get those clients?
I literally did the kind of stuff that you do, found things they were interested in and sent them crazy, bold emails. And I just got their attention and they were like, he's a good writer. I'll give him a chance to be my copywriter. So I did what others don't even think to do. And it always works, right, Brad? You're the living example of this, Dennis Rodman. So yeah, I did that. And I got these 2 high profile clients and it really worked. They saw exponential outcomes with the copy I was writing. So then everybody found out because they were telling everybody, oh my gosh, we found this new young copywriter. He's amazing. Go hire him. And I was inundated. And the first version of Synduit became a marketing agency as a result, because it became more than just copy. It was build websites, funnels, launch online products, run ad budgets. So built this big team overnight, big office. We grew to 400 active agency clients in the first 15 months, which is a ton of clients. And then I burnt out. For me, that just wasn't the vision. Every time we had a new client, I had to go out and hire somebody to manage the client. And I don't like businesses that scale through hiring. And that's what that was. So that's when I had the clear vision of building a marketing software. I wanted to find a way to democratize the agency, to make it accessible for John and Jane Doe small business owner that didn't have $5,000 a month to spend with us. They had 50, and I wanted to find a way to make it accessible for them at $50 a month. So I went all in to build the first version of our software. I hired a development company. They quoted me 10 months and $750,000 for that first version. I said, let's do it. I wrote a check personally every month for $75,000 a month. In that 10th month, they turned over the product. It was half of what we agreed on. And the final invoice, which should have been 75 grand, was $1.5 million. And I called up their CEO because we became friendly. And I'm like, what happened here? Like, what's that number? And he's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just finding out myself. Like, they were over budget the whole time. They didn't communicate it well. Like, I'm like, all right, but that's like literally absurd. So I paid a little more. They accepted a lot less. There was a ton of silver lining in that, which we could talk about later. But here's what happened. We began to now pivot from agency to software company with like a half-built software. It's like moving into a house without a roof. Like, it's not going to go well. Like, what happens when it rains? Like, it's just not a good situation. So in that process, I stopped taking agency clients that were paying us $5,000 a month. I transitioned some to this like half-baked software at $50 a month, but our expenses didn't go down. Like, we still had a big team, and like, what was I going to do? And all of a sudden we ran out of money. And it wasn't because like we were failing. Like, we were like doing great. I was just like in this pivot. I never raised any money. It's hard to raise money when you're really that low, even though you have a good track record. And I was on the phone with my business manager, my accountant, and I'm like, what does a company do when they run out of money? Like what happens? And they're like, well, you have to either fire people or you have to sell. And I couldn't sell because like the software wasn't really ready. And I wasn't going to sell more agency services where we had like these year commits because I knew that was what we were pivoting out of. And I couldn't fire anybody because I needed them all to eventually transition into the software. So I'm sitting there like kind of dark, like, oh my goodness, like built this like multiple seven-figure business, like kind of overnight. And it's literally coming crashing down because I was willing to risk good for the potential of Epic. Like, we had a really good business, like, and probably a great business from anyone's standards, but I saw the potential for Epic, and Epic was freedom, like true freedom. And not just for me, for a million businesses that we would help, for our team, like for everybody. Like, that's what I saw. So I'm sitting there really dark. The team started to sense like my darkness and like my pain. And I'm like, but I have myself. And like, I'm an expert on blank. Like, and all of us are an expert on something. Like, we all have an expertise, like whatever that is for you. So I know that I'm an expert when it comes to building and implementing 12-month marketing plans. Like, I know that I'm best in the world at that, like reverse engineering the process, building out a 12-month plan. So I came into the office and I said, guys, we're going to launch a 6-week boot camp for $1,000 a person. And we're going to go out to our little database. And my goal is to get 400 people to pay on the spot for 6 weeks with me. We're going to all go through this process together. And they're like, all right, like it came out of nowhere. Like, we weren't doing those types of things. And within 48 hours, we had the 400 people. We made $400,000. I covered the payroll. It got us to like that next phase that I needed to get to for us to build the software out to eventually launch it. And I lived to tell the story. So I've been there. Like I've been there even after that, where we went all in on a certain feature. It took longer than expected. Like, it's very expensive to build technology. And I always find a way to monetize my genius. Even if I know that's not like really what I want to do. Like, I didn't really want to lead that 6-week experience. What I really wanted to do was build a platform that created freedom for my team, for my family, for our users. That was the North Star that I was striving to get to. If this was a chapter in the book, I was willing to do it. But that literally was my experience in 2014-ish. That's when it was.
You got 400 people to pay $1,000?
Yeah, in 48 hours. Yeah, we got emails.
They paid in 48 hours?
48 hours and $400,000. I had to. Payroll was due on Friday, and I was committed to not missing payroll. Like, that was my commitment, was I won't miss payroll for my team. So we literally set up a page. Like, it was ugly, messy. If I cared about detail, we never would have done it. And I'm like, if you want to talk, I'll get on the phone and talk to you. Some people just bought, some people wanted to talk. And it was like a total team effort. Like, we rallied around it. Like, the team saw we did it. And then it bought me time. I just needed time. That's all I just needed to like buy some time to be able to then get the software to where I needed to get to so I can launch it. Because I knew if I launched it, it would be okay, but I couldn't launch it with 50% of what it needed to be. And I needed another few months to get it there. And I didn't want to take on agency clients because that would have just been out of integrity. Like an agency deal for us was a year commit at like $5,000 a month. And I didn't want to have a year commit because I didn't have a year of a financial issue. I had like a 2-month financial issue. So I'm like, I need to solve my 2-month issue to then be able to launch. And for most of you that are out there, you don't have like a forever issue. Like you might have like a 2-month, a 3-month, like fill that gap. And the process I learned too, like that was my first time teaching people how to build an annual marketing plan. Like what a gift that was for me. Opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. Because when I did that, it helped me rethink the use case of our software. And we started to build it in such a way that would help other people build 12-month marketing plans using our software. So that's why everything is an opportunity. Even though in that moment, like our team of maybe 50 or 60 people at that time, like we were done. Like it was over. Like I had no money in the bank. And I personally like was stretched very, very thin because I just put everything into building this software that was half-baked. But I live to tell the story, and I'm no different than any of you. I just don't.
How did you build the course?
It was
a 6-month course, right?
6 week. It was live. Yeah, it was live. We were doing it on like, it was like a free conference call thing. It was like a phone call. Yeah, there was no Zoom at that time. It was a conference call for 6 weeks.
Well, that's extremely important because the theme here is like having absolutely nothing and you need cash in immediately. So you went and sold a product for $1,000 that required nothing but, I mean, how many hours a week were you doing the course?
It was an hour a week. It was 6 total hours. And I probably put in an hour of prep each week. So probably 12 hours.
So 12 hours and you made $400,000.
Yeah.
And it was just the idea of get something that doesn't require a lot of time, that's going to generate a lot of cash really, really quickly. What were you the expert in at the time? What was the course positioned as?
It walked people through building a 12-month marketing plan for their small business. So like the specific pieces of what their 12-month plan would look like. And we had everything from chiropractors on to real estate professionals. It was very diverse, the group.
So at the time you had an audience, so you had some customers.
Yeah. So we had like a database of like maybe 4,000 people, 4,000 or 5,000 people on the list.
And if you didn't have that database, how would you have gotten customers today?
I would have reached out to, this is actually how we've grown Synduit and every one of my tech companies. So I really focus on relationship capital. I know that so many people feel this like need to like, I'm going to run a Facebook ad to get somebody to opt in for my white paper. And then I'm going to send them a series of emails. They're just going to buy. Like there's so few people that have actually pulled that off. Like, and that's just me being real with all of you. And those that have really big budgets because the cost per acquisition is very high. And most people that are starting something new don't have a big budget. But what you have is a big budget of relationship capital, years and years of people that have grown to know, like, and trust you. So we have over 40,000 people that use our software now, that pay for it. And 0 of them have signed up because of a Facebook ad or any ad for that matter. We don't optimize our site. We optimize our relationships. So whenever we launch a new industry, I do research and my team does research now on who are the leaders in the industry, who are the thought leaders, who are the people that have influence, who can we align with philosophically, like who has put out content that like speaks to our soul the way that our content would speak to their soul. And we literally just reach out to them. And we're super intentional with wanting to create a win-win within the industry. And I would say that 95% of the people we reach out to reply, and they get on a call with us. And then we share the vision. And once they hear the vision and they learn more about who we are, they're really motivated to create a win-win with us that supports their industry. So I still do this today. Like
what's an example of that original outreach?
So when we launched in the functional medicine industry, I had no actual relationships there. So I was doing research on leaders of the industry. And there was this gentleman, Dr. Peter Osborne, that showed up that wrote a best-selling book on gluten-free lifestyle and built a massive following, had a coaching program for functional medicine practitioners. I think he has the largest practice in the country as well. He's in Texas. I think it's like a year wait list to work with him. And he was on TV and this was the guy. But I aligned with him. Like I was reading content that he wrote and I'm like, this is someone that's pure. Like he is doing this for the right reason. So I just reached out very authentically and introduced myself and what I did. And I said, I've built this platform that I'm 100% certain will make functional medicine the first stop instead of the last stop on someone's healthcare journey. And I would love to just show it to you because if you see this as a conduit to support the profession, I think we should partner on it and work on the profession together. And he wrote back and said, I'm open to hear it. And then we had a call. It was a 15-minute scheduled call that his staff scheduled in between patients, and it lasted for an hour. And he said, I want to bring this to the market and I want nothing in return. I deeply believe in this. This is the tool that every practitioner needs. And he was our catalyst in that industry. And we probably had about 400 practitioners sign up for the software when he launched it with us, which led to another gentleman named Sachin Patel, who was another leader in that industry. And one of his students saw what we were doing. He goes, I have a tribe of about 1,000 people that I'd like to introduce this to. And then he probably got 700 people to sign up. So we just relationship capital, not one person to sign up because we paid for ads. We had relationships.
So relationship capital, go do your homework on the person that you're going to reach out to, be extremely authentic. But one thing I don't do, which I think a lot of people should do, is be clear why you're reaching out. So you weren't
ulterior motive.
You weren't afraid to tell him you wanted him to use the software, though.
That was fine. That was direct with him, right? So it's so important that it's not like, oh, I'm going to convince them to do this, and I have this motive behind the scenes. Right? I don't have the reason people immediately trust me, Brad. You've been on the receiving end of this. I never have an ulterior motive, ever. I have everything I want in life, so I have no ulterior motive other than I want to create a real win-win. I want someone's experience with me to be a world-class experience, even if I'm quote unquote selling them something. I want them to be I just want to associate with Jared. So because of that mentality, there's no one I can't get in touch with now. And I'm not saying this from a place of arrogance because anyone can do that. Yeah. I just have no ulterior motive. No one feels yesterday I had this wonderful conversation with this gentleman named Michael Maynard, who is an icon in the residential real estate world. Massive Maynard, M-A-H-E-R. He'd be great for this, actually. I'll introduce you guys. Awesome. But we spoke yesterday. This was a cold email that I reached out 2.5 years ago that has become a blood brother at this point. And he is in the industry of residential real estate, the top of the top of the top as a trainer to the profession. And I could text him at any point of any day, hey, I was thinking about you, let's talk. And immediately he's on the phone with me. And if he thought there was an ulterior motive, I was trying to sell, he just wouldn't do it. But we have built this bond that's focused on win-win, win-win outcome, always. And I think deeply about how can I support the other person get what they want way more often than I get what I want. And because that's always my mentality, they like it. And then when you meet like-minded people, it becomes a battle of who's going to help the other person more? Who's going to have 51, who's going to have 49? And then you just have to come to an acceptance that we're both going to get 50-50. But for anyone that's listening, you can do this. This isn't oh, I need to be really technical to pull that off. No, you have to care about someone else's outcome more than your own. And if you're willing to play long game, even though I don't think it's very long, but it's longer game, I suppose, they're running a Facebook ad that's never going to convert. So that's really a long game. You're going to get the outcome you're looking for. Here's what's really cool. I said this to him yesterday. He teaches the industry of residential realtors, how to build a referral-based business. And what's so interesting about this is I asked my stepfather the other day this question. He's a chiropractor for over 40 years. You know him, you met him before. And I said to him, when you go out to the gym and you're working out and you're talking to somebody that's working out next to you, you build this relationship, and then you invite them to come into your practice, and they actually come in and they have that first visit with you, and they're oh my gosh, Dr. Burke, this is so enlightening. I want to bring my wife in, I want to bring my kids in, and all of that happened because you just were out there building relationships. Would you do that even if you didn't have a practice? Even if there wasn't the ability to get a new patient, would you do that? He's yeah, it lights my fire, having a chance to meet and connect with people. I'm awesome, pause there. would you run Facebook ads to get people to convert to a white paper if you didn't have a practice? He's like, never. I'm like, then stop doing that and just focus on the stuff that you would do, even if you didn't have a business. Because everybody would want to build relationships. And Ivan Meisner is a dear friend of mine. He's the founder of B&I, which is Business Networking International.
What's his name again?
Ivan Meisner.
Ivan Meisner.
Yeah, so he's the founder of B&I. It's the largest organized networking group in the world. They have 400,000 members. And we were talking about this, and I said to him, I deeply believe that the ability to build rapport and relationships is inherent in every single one of us. And he goes, no, it's a learned skill. I'm like, it's not a learned skill. It's an unlearned skill. Because my daughter, when we were living in Westport, I remember this vividly. We went to the beach one day, and she's 4, or at the time she was like almost 4. And there was another child that was there that was like a year older than her. And within 5 seconds, Brad, they were best friends. 5 seconds. Like they never met each other. 5 seconds, running around, holding hands, laughing, hugging, like 5 seconds. Like building rapport, building relationships is something that it's inherent to us. It's not a learned skill. We unlearn it because of our limiting beliefs. And because of that, for any of you out there that are like rock bottom, like, oh my gosh, where do I go from here? Build relationships with people that matter. Find win-win. This is what you just did, Brad. Like in everything of your life is about this, right? Like when we were working together, like you would just find creative ways to create wins for other people. And they'd be like, wow, like that was awesome. Thank you. And now you have a new friend. And friends like to support each other. And I mean, anyone at rock bottom, do that versus going and like hacking a funnel or running an ad to try to get somebody to opt in for nothing of value. And now you're emailing them, hoping they're going to buy. They're never going to buy. They're never going to buy. But if you take the time to genuinely help people on an individual basis, you will feel better and you will leave the place of darkness and get to a place of lightness. And that's tactical, practical. It's what I do every day. And I know it's what you do as well.
Jeez. Well, I know we have to wrap up. So I'll say, the last thing I'll say about you is, I don't know, who knows what happened, how it ended with Unblinded. And I think there was a lot of people turned off by some things, whatever. If my hope of this podcast does anything, it's to show everybody in that ecosystem, or that was a part of that ecosystem, how phenomenal of a person you are. And I think the way you opened up, you shared your story about your father, your mother, your divorce, the pain, the identity crisis, and the new identity you formed for yourself and the person you became because of that pain, and how passionate you don't want anybody to ever have to experience that. So you don't ever want anybody to suffer from an identity crisis. And if you can't see exactly how passionate Jared is about helping other people, just look at his freaking t-shirt right now. I mean, he is sweating through a black t-shirt. But I truly believe that's a symbol of how much I truly believe that's a symbol of how much he cares about other people and how much he really wants to help other people. Now, he knows this because I've told him sometimes he can use a little bit too much Zeus energy because he cares so much that he starts sweating profusely. But that doesn't mean that to his core of his soul and to his being, he truly cares about helping you or helping another person. And I think you also gave us some really phenomenal strategies to go out there, to get cash, to get clients, to create win-win relationships, and to form and use relationship capital to scale a business by adding value, doing your homework, and being crystal clear on what you want the relationship to turn into. So I think it was a phenomenal interview, and I'm excited to go back and take notes and write down everything I learned today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm proud of you. I mean, what you have now stepped into in this chapter is your flame, Brad. Like this is flame work for you. And I know it's going to be bright for you and your family. And you are truly the Dennis Rodman of sales. And not even just of sales, of life. Like you show up unapologetically you, and it's just filled with serving and making a difference. And it's been a blast to get to know you. And I know we're just getting started, and I can't wait to see what this evolves into, because it's going to make a massive difference in the world and in your world as well, my friend. And you've earned that. So thank you.
Thanks, Jared.